What is going on, folks? This is Gino with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and it is finally time that I add to our flag football preview series. It's been a minute, but man, oh man, do we have some great flag football ahead of us here in the 2026 women's football season. Coach V and Coach K have already gotten us kicked off with some awesome previews of a few familiar and a few new programs mixed in as well. Today, I'm going to be adding to that mix here as I have two teams that we are very familiar with, and then I'll be ending with easily one of the most exciting new programs joining us here in the 2026 season. I am so excited to keep the coverage rolling, so let's just jump right into it here. First off, I am starting with a national contender, a team that has been underdogs for far too long, and this might be the year that all changes. I am, of course, talking about the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes of the KCAC. The Coyotes finished with a 15-7 overall record last year, and they lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual champions, the Ottawa Braves, in double overtime. The Coyotes are led by first-year head coach Chris Snyder, who is replacing NAIA flag football legend Melinda Nguyen. Definitely some big shoes to fill here, but Snyder is no stranger to the game of football. With over 25 years of coaching experience under his belt, Coach Snyder is bringing some amazing experience to a team that is primed to compete for a national championship this year. He served as interim head coach for the Kansas Wesleyan men's tackle football team and led them to an NAIA playoff appearance as well. He has also served as an offensive coordinator for several years for the Coyotes men's team and introduced a more modern offense back in the early 2010s. I expect much of the same here, as this Coyotes flag team is already very used to a pro-style offense, so Coach Snyder's up-tempo spread offense should fit in quite beautifully here. Looking back at some key games for the Coyotes back in 2025, first of all, let's go ahead and just talk about the elephant in the room here. They had a 26-25 double OT loss to Ottawa, probably a top 2 game from last season and maybe a top 5 game in NAIA flag football history. This was a heartbreaker of monstrous proportions because the Coyotes were in perfect position to completely knock out the 4-time national champs, and it came down to an extra point, but those Braves just stuck around and would not give up. The Braves and Coyotes will be at the most competitive this matchup has ever been ahead of the 2026 flag season. Expect some great matchup from these two squads. Next year, they also did have 3 wins over Baker, which is absolutely huge, including a 26-20 win to advance to the KCAC championship, and only 1 loss against Baker by a single point. This Baker and Kansas Wesleyan matchup is going to be easily one of the most exciting matchups this season, especially with Baker also on the brink of national contention. They definitely do not want to be the little sister or little brother to Kansas Wesleyan. Now let's go ahead and look at the key departures from last season here for Kansas Wesleyan. First of all, let's talk about it. Melinda Nguyen. This is a huge loss, obviously, as Coach Nguyen is a fierce competitor and a top-tier recruiter. She will be taking over right away at a Division I UT Arlington, which is such an amazing opportunity for one of the best coaches out there. We definitely look forward to covering her squad in their first season in 2027. Also, here we have Alexa Mansur, multi-time All-PMC linebacker and the heart of the Coyotes defense for the last several years. Mansur's presence will still be felt, though, as an assistant coach for the squad ahead of the 2026 season, which is definitely amazing, but it will be interesting to see who steps up as the leader of the defense in replacement of Mansur. Next year, we also have another player who graduated in Angel Roman, another All-PMC recipient and a key contributor on both sides of the ball for the Coyotes. Roman was as tough as they come and definitely a leader for this team. Like Mansur, her contributions go beyond the stat sheet, and it will not be easy to replace a leader like that. Not to mention, she is also a GA for Baker this season to add a little more salt to that wound there. Next here we have Kieran DeQuee, a lethal yards after the catch threat and a fantastic athlete. DeQuee was a big contributor in the receiving room for the Coyotes, and they will definitely miss her speed on the outside. Another great teammate for the squad too, so she will not be easy to replace. Next year, we have another starter on the offensive side of the ball. I'm talking about Alexis Jimenez. Jimenez was a consistent piece of the offense as a running back, so make that 3 starting receiving options that have now graduated between Roman, Jimenez, and DeQuee. Next year, we have another offensive weapon that has departed here. We have Addison Cadwell. Cadwell is seen as the next upcoming inside wide receiver or running back option for the Coyotes, but she has now joined many of her other Colorado players at Wingate for the 2026 season. Next here we have Lexi Marquez, a lethal and underrated linebacker who always stepped it up in the playoffs. That leaves the middle of the defense for the Coyotes in a very, very interesting spot. And lastly here for the key departures, I'm going to talk about Michaela Howard. Starting DB for the last 2 seasons with 7 career interceptions and 25 pass deflections, she was a huge piece of this Kansas Wesleyan defense for sure. Moving on now, I definitely want to talk about some of the key returning players that Kansas Wesleyan has, because they definitely have some great ones here. Starting off, of course, we got to talk about the quarterback, Chihiro Awada, a multi-time MVP candidate and future QB for Team Japan in the Olympics. Awada returning is going to be absolutely huge for this Coyotes team in so many ways. They are true contenders in any game with her under center. Her mechanics are as smooth as they come, and her poise is something that any coach would love to have as the sheriff of their offense. Expect an all-time season from Awada in her senior season for the Coyotes. She will be more dialed in than ever, and she has phenomenal chemistry already with her receiving core as well. But let's look at her career so far by the numbers. In 2024 and 13 games here that are listed, 52 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. She bumped those numbers up big time in 2025, racking up 68 passing touchdowns to only 7 interceptions and 4,628 passing yards in 20 games, not to mention 7 rushing touchdowns as well. Iwata is absolutely electric with the ball in her hands, so expect an MVP type season once again from the senior QB. Next here, we have Awada's number 1 target from last year, Aaliyah Wood. Wood instantly became Awada's number 1 option, as I just mentioned, and she also became a Defensive Player of the Year level defensive back for the Coyotes as soon as she joined. She will absolutely light things up in the 2026 season. There's absolutely zero doubt about that. Her value to this team is truly tremendous. But let's go ahead and look at her 2025 season by the numbers here. She had 111 receptions and 1,068 receiving yards and 16 receiving touchdowns. Unbelievable. And then on defense, she had 38 flag pulls and 8 interceptions with 16 pass deflections. So not only is she a ball hawk on defense, she also has sticky glue hands on offense, and she pairs perfectly with a quarterback of Awada's stature. But next here, let's go ahead and talk about another receiver, another target that Awada has. I am, of course, talking about Jasmine Whitfield. This will be Whitfield's 3rd year as a full-time starter with a 1,300-yard and 17 touchdown season just 2 years ago. She is an excellent number 2 wide receiver, and I will not be shocked if she racked up another 1,000-yard and 10-plus touchdown season in 2026. She is a senior, and her and Aaliyah Wood as a duo works so well as well here. Let's go ahead and look at her career by the numbers. She started off her freshman year a little bit slow, but she kicked things up big time in 2024 as a sophomore. In 20 games, she had 115 receptions, 1,389 yards and 17 touchdowns as Awada's number one target there as a sophomore. And then last year as a junior, the numbers dipped a bit, but that's really just because, you welcome Aaliyah Wood into the offense and she becomes the number one wide receiver. But nonetheless, Whitfield put up some very respectable numbers here in 20 games, putting up 72 receptions, 725 yards, and 12 receiving touchdowns. So some very, very respectable numbers here for Whitfield. Honestly, I really, really would not be shocked at all if she put up another 1,000-yard season here and got back into the 10-plus touchdowns. She could really get up to 50-plus touchdowns in her career if all things go right this year. Next up now, let's move over to the opposite side of the ball and talk about the rusher, Diane Rabano. Rabano has been steadily improving every single year that she has been at Kansas Wesleyan. She went for 6.5 sacks in 2024 as a part-time starter, and she upped that to 11.5 last year as the full-time starter. She could easily turn that into 15-plus sacks this year at the rate she's going. Definitely an all-PMC level player here in 2026. But let's move on now and talk about the sophomore center, Ava Durr. And honestly, folks, not many freshman centers are capable of being as productive as Durr was in 2025 as a freshman. Her height and ability to make plays in the pass game makes her a potential all-PMC center as a sophomore if she continues at the rate that she's been going. Let's look at her freshman season here by the numbers. She racked up 51 receptions for 451 yards and 6 touchdowns. That really just made her the number 3 to number 4 target, maybe behind Kieran DeQuee last year. But honestly, that kind of production as a freshman, when you're not even the number 1, number 2, or really even number 3 option in the offense, is absolutely tremendous. It's great that you have a quarterback like Awada that's able to go through her progressions and work her way to Ava Durr for some open checkdowns or even a big play over the middle. But next here, I'm going to talk about our last highlighted player that's returning from last year. We got NAIA Green. With 5 sacks and 2 picks as a freshman and a little bit of contribution there on offense, especially in the playoffs, Green can move wherever you need her. And honestly, her impact will definitely be going up in this upcoming season with how many defensive departures this team is working with. So she is definitely a player to look out for. Let's move on now, folks, and talk about some new additions that Kansas Wesleyan is going to be welcoming here for the 2026 squad, and they have some very good ones. Starting off here, we have Laura Hernandez Sanchez, an international prospect. This is a massive recruit for the Coyotes. She is a Spanish national team member who is sure to get some playing time in her first year. Her national team experience against the top talent in the world makes her a potential future star in the making here. Moving on now, we have Jocelyn Huntsman. Huntsman was a top linebacker in Colorado, coming from one of the top programs here, Legend High School. She is a fierce competitor and an expert in the art of pulling flags. With the lack of returning linebackers from last season, there is a chance that Huntsman makes an impact right away. Next here, we have another great prospect that Kansas Wesleyan is welcoming. We're talking about Kylie Marshall. This was a big pull for the Coyotes, as Marshall has some huge potential as an inside receiver for them. Kylie Marshall is a Kansas native. Her film shows some excellent flag evasion and her head-topping receivers left and right. She brings some big play potential to an already exciting offense. Coming up next now, we got a name that I'm most likely going to butcher, but we got Eva DeCesar. Coming from Florida, she is a new potential rusher or linebacker for Kansas Wesleyan. Eva had 16 career sacks in high school, including 12 as a junior. Next up now, we have another Colorado player on the defensive side of the ball, Angie Lohr. Lohr will be a linebacker for Kansas Wesleyan, the same position she played as a dominant defensive player at Thornton High School. Moving on now, we have Eliana Lee. a 5'10" freshman wide receiver, and a Maxwell Award nominee coming out of Seattle, Washington. As one of the top recruits from the Pacific Northwest, it will be interesting to see what kind of role she carves out for herself here in her first year at Kansas Wesleyan. Last couple of players now, we have Naomi Shannon. From California, Shannon is a new potential QB for the team once Awada graduates. And last player I'm going to highlight here for newcomers is going to be Sadie Prince. Coming out of Florida, Prince's 4'10" height and shifty athleticism makes her an intriguing option at rusher. She is extremely tough to stay in front of as a blocker, and I think she would work very well next to Rabano in a two-rush formation. And that's going to do it here for the newcomers here for Kansas Wesleyan. I know there's some players that I missed, but I really just covered the players that I was able to, gather the most information on. So if I wasn't able to bring you up, I do apologize about that here. But it's really just based off of the info I was able to get from social media and Max Preps and that sort of thing. But moving on now, folks, I kind of want to just talk about an overview of my thoughts on the upcoming season here for Kansas Wesleyan. As I mentioned before, Coach Snyder and the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes are in prime position to contend not only for the KCAC crown, but for the national championship as well. Ottawa is still the team to beat, obviously, but it truly is anyone's game this year, with the Braves losing Madison Carrera and a few other key pieces of their offense and defense. It is not necessarily now or never for the Coyotes, but with it being Chihiro Awada's last season and the amount of talent that they have at receiver, this will truly be their best opportunity that they have ever had to make a championship run. Their freshman class is as strong as they come, with a strong mix of international, local, and coastal talent that they are bringing into this roster. The Aaliyah Wood and Jasmine Whitfield duo is amongst the most productive receiver duos in the entire country, and I expect much of the same in 2026. Awada might be the MVP favorite, and she has all the talent at receiver she could possibly need for that to happen. There will be some ups and downs, of course, with a new head coach and some key departures, especially on defense. But you have Alexa Manser continuing her legacy as a coach now to extend the magic they had before. Plus, the offense is going to be the best it has ever been personnel-wise. With that being said, it will take some serious adjusting on defense to see who or what is going to work over the middle. This team has been used to the same core of players there for years, so it will definitely take some trial and error before they solidify their personnel in those spots. Overall, though, this is the most excited I've ever been for the Kansas Wesleyan team, and I can't wait to see how they respond to the new-look Ottawa Braves and the ever-evolving Baker Wildcats, who also seem to be on the absolute brink of national championship contention. There has truly never been this much parity in the NAIA flag football scene, and the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes are set to take advantage. The next team I'm going to preview here, folks, is a team that didn't necessarily reach the same heights that a Kansas Wesleyan reached, but they honestly are still working to get the program to where they want it to be. I am, of course, talking about the Cottey Comets of the KCAC. Cottey finished 5-12 the year before in 2025, and they are led by brand new head coach Chris Smoot. Smoot has over 20 years of coaching experience, many of those as a head coach and coordinator on both sides of the ball for boys tackle football at the high school level. This is a great sign for the program, as Smoot is a seasoned veteran football coach, and his long tenure in high school athletics shows his commitment to player development at all levels. Looking at the key games here in 2025 for Cottey, there weren't a ton, but they did have some okay wins here. First up, we have a 20-12 win over St. Mary in their second game of the season. Returning receiver Tamaya Squire had 4 receptions and a touchdown in that one. After that, we have a 63-6 blowout win over Bethel. Now, obviously, Bethel is still working on getting things going over there, but a big win like that is always a big boost to morale. And now, finally, we also have 3 straight wins in the middle of the season last year, and this would bring them up to 5. Those 3 wins came over Bethel, Heston, and Pratt. And the key here is that win over Heston, as they are joining the KCAC starting in 2026. So if Cottey can keep up that positive momentum, then that is one more KCAC opponent to get some big wins over. Now that we're done talking about some of the key wins and key games from last year, let's talk about some key departures here for Cottey, because there are a few now. First off here, we have the quarterback for the last 2 years, Amaya Karula. She was a short but mighty presence and provided some unique dual threat ability for the Cottey offense. Now, Karula is not necessarily irreplaceable, but it is never easy replacing a 2-year starter at the most important position in the sport. Next here, we have another key contributor, Laurencia Botts. She is no longer rostered, but her sister is still on the team, which is huge. They will need to try and replace her 52 flagpoles from last season. Next here, we have an honorable mention, All-KCAC member Leslie Chalmers. Chalmers was a contributor on both sides of the ball, and she is no longer on the roster. Lastly here, we have Alyssa Hollis. Hollis had some big games in the last 2 years, but she will not be rostered here in 2026. So now that we're done talking about the players that are not going to be rostered, let's go ahead and see who's going to be returning from last year and keeping this thing rolling. First up here, we got to talk about Tamaya Squire. You can definitely argue that Tamaya Squire is the most consistent player on this roster. She is always a player that stands out when I get to see them play. With 8 career interceptions and over 700 career receiving yards, Squire is due for a huge junior season as the leader for this squad. Another key contributor from the last year is going to be Alina Jean-Baptiste. Jean-Baptiste is a huge returning player for the Comets. That is 55 flagpoles they're bringing back, as well as over 300 receiving yards in a very underwhelming passing offense. And that was in her sophomore year. So as a junior, her and Squire are going to be the building blocks for a more practical and effective offensive attack, hopefully in 2026. Now, I did mention Laurencia Bott's sister is coming back, and that is true. Zaitlali? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that there. Botts has made herself one of the top targets on offense as a freshman, and she made a huge impact on defense as well as the season went on. Expect a huge boost in numbers for her in her sophomore season, especially with the team needing any sort of veteran experience. Now, lastly here, we have the only QB that is currently rostered here for the Comets. It is going to be Renaya Griffin. Griffin slinged 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions last year in her limited run as the QB for the Comets in 2025. But I feel like she can really turn things around this year in Coach Schmut's system, which, she's only a sophomore and she has some great targets returning from last year, plus a lot of new talent in the freshman class arriving as well. Expect Griffin to be the QB to start off this new era for the Comet football team. So that kind of does it for key returning players. Not a ton there, which is a bit concerning, where your departures outweigh your key returning players. But let's go ahead and see what they have for new additions for the freshman class coming in for 2026. Let's start off now with a player I'm very excited to get to see watch. I'm talking about Zeta Arnold. And she's going to be the likely starting running back or wide receiver for the Comets. She put up over 700 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns on over 10 yards per carry, not to mention 27 receptions for 481 yards and 5 more touchdowns receiving as a senior at Beaumont High School in California. This is a huge addition for the Comets as they absolutely need more playmakers on offense. Arnold should be getting some playing time right out the gate. And honestly, I'm going to say it right now, she'll probably be on the watch list here for our all PMC teams as well, for the freshman team at least, because those kinds of stats in California are not easy to put up. So that is a huge pull for this Cottey offense. Someone else who could potentially put up some big numbers here for the Cottey defense is going to be Monica Blanc. Blanc is an incoming freshman here. She put up 147 career flag pulls, 11 sacks, and 4 interceptions in her career at Royal Palm Beach High School in Florida. Her quickness will give her some good potential to fill some of the holes the Comets currently have on defense, and her speed in her film shows that she could be an offensive contributor as well. Over 300 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns in her senior year on offense in high school. Next up now, we got Araya Alexander. The defense is going to be a big concern for Cottey heading into 2026, but Alexander might be able to help with that. 77 tackles, 6 sacks, 5 interceptions in her senior year at Knight High School in California. Araya Alexander might be exactly what this defense needs to start building something special. Now, that is not all of the new additions that Cottey is going to be welcoming in 2026, but those are the ones that I was able to gather the most information on. There could definitely be some of the other freshmen that they're bringing in that are going to be huge contributors as well. So I'm sorry to those that I'm not able to mention here. It's really just based off of the info that I got from both social media and just online via Max Preps or film or whatever it is. So moving on now, let's go ahead and go over the season overview, at least in my opinion, for Cottey and what I'm going to be looking out for here. With a brand new head coach and not a ton of returning talent, the Comets are definitely facing an uphill battle ahead of the 2026 season. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all, though, as Coach Chris Smoot may be the perfect person to lead the charge on this rebuild. Smoot knows that it is a marathon and not a sprint when it comes to building a program, and this current core of players is a solid start into building a respectable program. Their schedule starts to get tough when March hits, but they have big opportunities to get some wins off against Pratt, Bethel, and Dallas Baptist to start the season. With that being said, I wouldn't expect a huge surge in wins this year for Cottey. I would say really the main thing that I'm keeping my eye on here for Cottey is if the offense can start to really put together consistent drives throughout games, and if they can start to limit the amount of times that they are getting blown out. They need to take advantage and really enjoy the small victories and build on those every single game. I look at a program like Graceland, who was at the bottom of the KCAC with Bethel not too long ago, but they made one coaching change and suddenly the program is arguably a top 10 team in the country. Shout out Coach Richardson. The amount of returning players on Cottey combined with the lack of info on their new prospects definitely concerns me because it makes their wins and losses very hard to predict. I see 7, maybe 8 winnable games if everything goes correctly, but at the same time, there is just a big chance that it will take another year before they are really taking care of business like that. I think they are capable of replicating their win total from last year, though, and I give the Comets a win range of 3 to 5 here in Coach Chris Smoot's first year as head coach. And that is going to be it here for the 2026 Cottey Comets preview. Next up, I will be welcoming a brand new NAIA program to our coverage. And lastly here, folks, in this episode, the final team I'm going to preview is a brand new squad coming out of Arizona. We got the Benedictine Mesa Red Hawks, fresh out of the Great Southwest Athletic Conference. The Red Hawks are led by head coach Brian Winstead, who is no stranger to the game of flag football. Winstead is bringing over 15 years of football experience to the table as the first and only head coach of the Red Hawks. He started up the flag football program over at Gilbert High School in Arizona and has had some great success there. Plus, he has some experience coaching tackle football as well. Coach is very well connected and involved in the Arizona football scene as a whole, So it makes perfect sense for him to be coaching one of the first NAIA flag football programs in Arizona history. We are very excited to welcome the Red Hawks to the college flag football scene, and I speak for Coach V and Coach K when I say it is going to be a blast to cover this squad. Let's look at the schedule real quick. Looking at the schedule here for the Red Hawks, they will be facing off against the always tough Baker University Wildcats, led by legendary head coach Willie Perez in Week 1. And outside of that one game against Baker and then another game against Nevada State, those will be their only non-conference matchups this season. They will be at the forefront of a brand new conference and should have some great success there early on. With only 12 regular season games on the schedule, they will definitely need to capitalize on all of the opportunities in front of them. Luckily, though, they are mostly facing all brand new programs, and playing Baker early on in the season will definitely be humbling at first, but it will ultimately make them a much better team in the long run. Now, let's go ahead and look at this roster here for Mesa. Now, keep in mind, again, it's the same with the other two squads that I covered. I'm just listing the players that I was able to gather the most information on, and that way, I can actually get a good idea of what kind of player they are and that sort of thing. But let's go ahead and start off here with Jalen Aranda. Aranda should be making an impact right away as she has already played in Coach Winstead's system over at Gilbert High School. Look out for her to be one of the starting rushers for this squad as she racked up 6 sacks in her senior year at Gilbert. The next player I'm going to highlight is one that I absolutely do see contributing right away is going to be Sammy Koch. Sammy is a California product who played flag in Arizona in high school, but she is back in Arizona now to make an impact for the Red Hawks in 2026. She'll be a sophomore this season and is transferring from Huntington College. There aren't any stats available for her there for her time over at Huntington, but it is important to note that she racked up over 100 flagpoles and 5 interceptions her senior year as captain of a Campo Verde squad that went on to win the state championship. With a year of college flag and a state championship under her belt as well, expect Koch to step up as a leader of this defense right away. Moving on now, we have another exciting prospect here. I'm talking about Michaela Dennehy. Unlike the last two players, Dennehy is an international prospect coming from Ireland. She last attended Pratt Community College to play soccer for the last 2 years, but she is now rostered on the Benedictine flag football squad with 4 full years of eligibility to go. It's going to be exciting to see what kind of role she ends up having here in year 1. Keeping it rolling here, folks, let's talk about Aubrey Flores. Another Gilbert prospect under Coach Winstead. This is yet another key addition that knows Winstead's system on both sides of the ball. She put up nearly 1,000 yards and 14 receiving touchdowns at Gilbert in her career, and then her bio on her Benedictine page says that she was also an all-conference linebacker as well. Now, next here is definitely a very important prospect here. We have Haley Foster. Foster is a Gilbert native and a dual-threat QB that will be competing for the starting spot here for the Red Hawks. She was a threat on both sides of the ball in high school with 20 passing touchdowns, over 700 yards rushing, and 6 touchdowns on 9 yards per carry. And then on defense, she racked up 7 interceptions and then 67 flagpoles. That kind of versatility makes me believe that Foster is going to find a role pretty quickly as she has already showcased her ability as an offensive and defensive threat. Next now we have Jalissa Guerrero. Another threat on both sides of the ball, Guerrero was especially dominant on defense, putting up 7 interceptions as a senior and 11 total for her career. On offense, she was very reliable as well, with 2 seasons of 400-plus rushing yards in her junior and senior year, and also 600 career receiving yards as well. Yet another player that is very familiar with this system. Next now, we got Brianna Jacobs. Coming out of Mesa, Arizona, Jacobs is going to be staying home, and she is going to be a potential weapon in the pass game for the Redhawks. With nearly 800 yards and 8 touchdowns as a senior in high school, Jacobs is bringing consistent hands to an offense that should be very exciting. Next prospect here is an exciting one. She is a Colorado Springs product. I am, of course, talking about Deja Lynch out of Fountain Fort Carson High School here in Colorado Springs. Lynch is also attending Benedictine for basketball. And, I couldn't find much about her flag football career as she graduated before Fountain Fort Carson started up their flag football program. But I am always going to give a shout out to my Colorado Springs folks. So shout out Deja. Next here we have Isabella Misquez. Misquez was extremely productive in her 1 year of high school flag football. Nearly 700 yards and 7 receiving touchdowns. And then on defense, she put up 44 flag pulls, 11 sacks, and 2 interceptions there. That kind of production reveals a player that can play wherever you need her. I definitely love what she is going to be bringing to this Benedictine squad. And next up here, let's talk about Angelique Moreno, a Benedictine women's basketball player as well. Not much is known about her flag career to this point, but she is standing at 5'7", and the basketball to flag football pipeline is one of the strongest. So there's a chance that Moreno steps in right away as a contributor in the receiving room. She's also a junior, so that might be another reason to give her some playing time right out the gate. Speaking of basketball, let's talk about Kira Noel, our next player here who is going to be a senior for the Redhawks women's basketball team and the flag football squad. Her and Moreno are bringing some extremely valuable size and athleticism, with Noel standing at 5'9". This type of recruiting can prove to be huge for this team. Coming up next now, we got Kitana Pabon Diaz. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. A sophomore who has already played for Coach Winstead at Gilbert. She had 34 carries for over 200 yards at Gilbert, plus some solid production on defense as well. This next player is another very exciting one that is used to physicality by playing on the women's basketball team. I am talking about Aubrey Saleapaga. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. Standing at 5'9" and a junior, we are already starting to see a trend here with this squad. Coach Winstead has already made a great connection with the basketball team there, and he is bringing in seasoned college athletes to get this new team up and running. That is amazing recruiting right there. Saleapaga is a guard for the Redhawks, and she will prove to be extremely valuable for this squad with her college athletic experience and her pure athleticism. It's going to be cool to see where Coach Winstead decides to have her play. Keeping it rolling here, we have Rhiannon Smith, a defensive standout and a highly decorated player at Nevada State High School. Smith brings a dominant defensive presence to this Benedictine squad. She will be a great piece of this defense here for the Redhawks. And folks, you're not going to believe it, but we have yet another basketball player on this squad. It is going to be Valerie Van Dyke. Coach Winstead said, "Give me all the hoopers you got." Valerie Van Dyke is another standout for the Redhawks women's basketball team, and one of only 2 seniors on this squad. I expect an immediate impact with her 6-foot stature and with her being a senior as well. I love to see this mix of veteran talent and new talent as well. And lastly here for the new players that I'm going to be highlighting, we have Emily Williams. Williams is coming from Southwestern College over in the KCAC, very solid squad there. And in limited action as a freshman there, she put up 6 flag pulls, 2 sacks, and an interception. Williams' experience in the NAIA flag football scene is huge and makes her a viable option to go ahead and start at rusher or defensive back. Let's conclude this preview here now with just my overall thoughts and overview here for the 2026 season for the Benedictine Mesa Redhawks. There is truly a ton to like about this squad from a personnel and coaching perspective. For coaching, I already touched on how well connected and established that Coach Brian Winstead is, but I didn't mention before that he also has a defensive coordinator and 2 other assistants on top of that. Not many programs in NAIA are able to have the luxury of 3 committed assistant coaches, so already that is an awesome spot for this program to be in. From a personnel perspective, you're getting fantastic homegrown talent from the Arizona area that are familiar with Coach Brian Winstead's system and coaching style, plus some seasoned college athletes from the women's basketball team sprinkled in, plus the first player from Ireland in the NAIA flag scene that we will be able to cover. I'm pretty sure on that. It is a genius move to recruit from the basketball team, especially as a new program, because you are getting great, mature athletes and you're not forced to play freshmen right out the gate. Not that the freshmen they've got aren't ready to go, but it is amazing to be able to add 5 taller, shiftier athletes with great hands and are used to physicality to a squad in their very first year. I will say I am a little concerned about the QB position. Based off of the info I was able to gather, there is a chance that one of the players I didn't get to talk about are a QB, but right now all I saw was one true QB rostered at this time, which would be Haley Foster. Foster has the makings of being a really good college QB, but it may take some time for her to adjust to the speed of this level of the game. Winstead's system already runs a lot of college-level concepts with the way his QB is always looking to either get the ball out quick or check it down to the running back for some yards. The way he has the checks built into each play for when his QB is under duress is something that will definitely help his squad at the college level. The name of the game at this level is going to be quick throws and building and sustaining drives throughout the course of a game. And honestly, I don't really expect that to be an issue with this squad, since Gilbert's system already has a lot of that installed. One thing to look out for, though, is Coach's uses of 2 blockers to mitigate how much he saw 2 rusher looks at Gilbert. There is a lot less of use of the 2 rushers at the collegiate level, so I am intrigued to see if you'll have the 2 blockers built in to start out, or if you'll already come ready to spread the field with an extra receiver. He usually just has the second blocker roll out if the opposing defense only sends 1 rusher, but I would like to see if he just replaces that second blocker with another receiver at the line of scrimmage to run an actual route. Either way, I trust this staff to do what will work best for this personnel on their roster. It's going to be super exciting to watch as I expect this squad to compete for the Great Southwest Athletic Conference Championship in year 1. I give the Red Hawks a win window of 8 to 11 games in year 1 because I truly trust what Coach Winstead's flag football experience is going to bring to the table, and I absolutely love the veteran recruiting that he has done with the basketball team. And that, folks, is going to do it here in this episode of our 2026 Women's Flag Football Previews. I wish the absolute best of luck to all 3 of these programs ahead of the 2026 season, and I can't wait to cover some of these games starting in February. We got more and more episodes coming out nonstop for you guys, so make sure to check those out and keep up with the #1 source for women's flag football coverage. This is Gino with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and I will see you all next time.